Audio check, 1, 2. My name is Jamie Liebert, also known as Captain Manicorn.
My name is Sandra, also known as Sandra.
We're an American couple from America, and
You're doing great.
We're a couple from America. We're setting a world record to be the first man and woman to fly a parachute in every country of the world. So the reason why we have such a custom van, we originally had a T4, a 2004, and we lived in it for 2 years, and it wasn't adequate for full-time living. The roof was short on it. It didn't have a lot of storage, and because we are not only setting a world record of parachute, we're also paragliding, speed flying, wingsuiting, skydiving, base jumping, rock climbing. We have a lot of gear, so the other van we had to build a very custom box on the top of it, and it just got into pretty much a clown car. It was completely crazy looking. Know that we needed four-wheel drive. That was the big thing. We were limited to where we could go because we wanted to go further and further into nature and away from civilization and unexplored areas that other tourists might never get to see, and that was what our mission was. So we needed a vessel that could reach that goal. We reached this one from a guy named Yanni, and the rest is crazy.
Get one of those long the Sprinter vans with a long wheelbase, because we go into small little villages up through the mountains. We wanted to stick with the short wheelbase, which meant that we could really only go taller for the room that we needed rather than longer. It's really these guys' fault. So when we came to Europe, we had one dog, Freedom, who's a pity, good sized dog, and one sized dog in a small van, no problem. Then we found another puppy who was this big, so it wasn't a problem. Then all of a sudden she just
grew legs.
She grew legs, and then the legs just kept going and they didn't stop. I don't know if you ever slept with a dog with really long legs in a small van, but there's no room anywhere. Finding her was what kind of started our mission to help animals along our journey. But now we had 2 dogs, a bajillion parachutes, and no room, so we're like, we need to do something different. So that was kind of the catalyst too. But mostly I blamed the dogs.
From a technical aspect, there was limitations of where the old T4 could take me. It was a front wheel drive, it was turbo, it was diesel. I actually bought it for 1,800 euros from a wife of a deceased base jumper in Norway. It was a great deal. There was some issues with the paperwork, so that van, more than anything, we had to get it out of our name. So that's why we ended up chopping it in half and adding it to this one, because we wanted to register it in Romania, but they wanted like $3 grand for taxes. I only paid $1,800 for the van. So we ran into some point where it was not cost effective to keep the old vehicle. We had to get it out of our name, and we wanted to be able to go off-roading. crazy the way it happened. So we originally were gonna buy the van for 6,000 euros. It's a T4, it's a 1991, it's awesome. The guy who was selling it to us, Yanni, we originally were just gonna put a roof box on the top and maybe cut the top to be able to put a bed up there or something. We didn't know what we were gonna do.
It was gonna be simple.
You know, we would have the stove in the back in the kitchen, like our old van. The guy that we bought it from was a world famous car designer. He's in his 60s, and he's crazy, but a good crazy. And he had this idea that no one in the world has ever built a sidewall pop-out on a T4 before.
And it was his dream to do that design to the van we were buying. He just didn't have the time, had never gotten to it. It was an unfinished project. So when we came to him and we bought the van, he sat us down in his house with his chain cigarettes and he said, I have this crazy idea. I think that you guys should do it. It would be amazing to see my dream car and design out there traveling the world.
Actually, a funny story. I think for the first month and a half of the build, he never called it my van. It was always his van. He never recognized that it was my van, my dream, that I was gonna go. And even till the day
he would fight us on things. Like we were like, no, we don't want a toilet. We have a lot of things. And he was like, but where will I go potty? We're like, I didn't know you're coming with us. He was very adamant.
So for a while, nobody knew what was happening. It was like this weird, awkward, like, Yanni, it's my van. I don't want these things. Mm-hmm. But you know, what started off as a business transaction turned into one of my best friends. I love the guy. He took us in. He treated us like his own children. And he taught me how to weld. He taught me how to bend metal. Not just like, chop here, but the man was an artist.
Originally, after that,
I was worried it was going to weigh too much.
He pitched his idea to us about the pop-outs, and we went back to sleep and we were talking, and I told Jamie that maybe we shouldn't do it because it's kind of crazy and it's risky and it's never been done.
You said this?
At least I thought it.
No, I said this. I said, Sandra, there could be a lot of problems. You're talking about taking the interior structure of our van and cutting it up, and it's going to create, all kinds of problems if we're off-roading and twisting. I said, this could be a huge problem down the road for us.
Pretty sure you didn't say that either. What I told Jamie was that if we don't do the pop-outs, I will forever wonder what our life would have been like with the pop-outs. So it could either be the most amazing thing that's ever going to happen to us, or we're going to make a really stupid idea and completely mess up our home. So we decided to go with the pop-outs.
But it was this community that came together, because I can't just take credit for finding this van. Obviously, I don't know anybody in Greece, but we had a friend named Pepe who was a climbing friend who turned into a really good friend. She introduced us to somebody who introduced us to him. So it was like the community took care of us. I called her and said, hey, I have a problem. And she actually went out of her way. These guys spent like weeks looking at vans and going through all the work for us, and finally we came to this conclusion of buying it from Yanni. Back to Yanni, he's the sign. I take no credit. Yes, he used me. I was pretty much a slave to him for 8 months.
Once he figured out that you could weld a little bit.
Yeah, so I didn't know how to weld or ever build a van. That's why nothing looks finished. It doesn't have all those details that you see on it.
He didn't even want to build drawers in our last van. Like, I begged him forever. I'm like, can we have a drawer that slides out? He's like, no.
My last van I built with a hatchet. All right, you need to understand, I didn't have tools. I had a hatchet. And I had wood, and I used a hatchet to build this van, and a saw. So
you refused to buy new wood.
I refused to buy new wood.
So
it was intimidating.
It was out of your comfort zone, to say the least.
Yeah, and he was talking about cutting the roof off of one van and cutting the roof off of this van and welding them together, and then walls popping out, doors getting welded together, beds that extend and turn into couches.
But all those weren't, all of the crazy ideas weren't part of the original plan. It was, okay, we'll put the roof on to make it taller, we'll do the pop-outs, and then it was just like a snowball. Like, as they would design it, they'd be like, well, you have to have the tall door, otherwise you're gonna hit your head, so let's cut off the door and put it on the other one. And we gotta have a dog door, and we gotta have a doggy bed, and it just progressed into what it is. But originally the plan was
40
simple.
days.
40 days. So it was supposed
40
to be
days
40...
and 15,000, including the 7,000 for the vehicle.
How did that work out for you?
8 months, $55,000 later.
We're still crying.
I'm still crying. So back to Yanni, he changed my life. You know, it's one thing to help somebody build a van. It's another thing to help somebody build a home. And that's what Yanni did. He didn't build this as a van. He built it for our home. Every piece of metal in this van has a purpose. There's not one extra metal that serves as design. I know because I welded and cut it every piece. Every piece has a reason, and every piece wasn't done right the first time. It was done 10 times because I'm OCD and I don't know how to weld. And I don't know how to grind, and I don't know how to do any of these things. So imagine being OCD and having something that once you weld it, it's pretty permanent. You don't get to like, oh, I'm just gonna rebend that. You have to cut it and start over. So it became expensive, and every little piece was a learning, but I enjoyed parts of it when it was done. And Yanni and I, he's creative and he's OCD as well. So I didn't know about design. I didn't know about like having the curves follow the van. You know, I didn't understand this. This guy is, I can't emphasize that he's a genius.
Well, he's an architect.
He's an architect originally, a home architect, designed bridges, he's an artist.
His passion is cars, so he put those together to become an amazing designer.
Every piece that was supposed to be simple was a nightmare. I can't express it.
Nothing went with this van. Nothing went according to plan.
Nothing.
Like there was literally
nothing.
Like you would like, oh, okay, we'll put the stove in now. It's the last thing. Oh, the stove doesn't work. I mean, it was just every little piece was a struggle. It's
better. It's better. But you know, like there's so many imperfections. Like there's still holes up here, you know, that aren't great. I don't know how to seal them because that's not what I do. You know, there's things that are falling apart. There's metal that's cracking from the paint. There's a million things that are going wrong with this van. But that doesn't matter. Why? Because I can lay sideways in this motherfucker. I don't know if I can use profanity.
Beep!
Beep! But I can lay sideways in this thing. And ultimately, right now, I can stand up in this van. I can live in it. This is all storage above us. Above you is all storage. And then this is all living space. It has a dog bed that it has serves as a shoe bin. Also, it's a dog bed. It's a dog door. It's a table. This table comes out of the roof, so you can sit here in a horseshoe.
I mean, it suits all of our needs. Being able to have enough room to live comfortably, being able to have the dogs comfortable, being able to work because we work remotely, being able to store all of our storage. So everything was designed to solve some sort of problem.
Money and time. I lost my mind.
Sanity.
No, I lost my mind. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'd done 4 years in prison before, but at least in prison you could go outside and there was like, you knew the end date. You know, like I knew in 4 years I'd get out. So okay, you adapt to it. With this van, it was like never ending. Like 6 months into it, I couldn't see the end. It was so deep, and I was so deep in debt. Our
And
credit
there's no
card,
turning back.
yeah, we literally maxed out a $30,000 credit card to build this van, right? Like, thank God for COVID, because they're doing like credit card relief right now, and we haven't had to pay it for a month. Like, that's where we're at with all of this, to keep it real. The hardest thing was my sanity. Towards the end, I was getting sick, and I wanted to get out, and I was finishing it, and it could have went on for 3 more months, 4 more months, 5 more months, 6 more months. Every day I was there, it was costing me $150. Welding tanks, metal, supplies, having people help with electronics, or helping people paint, or doing all these different things. I couldn't afford it, and I knew I couldn't afford it, and I had to keep going. I can't even express it. Literally, our life savings, credit card debt. She's working on building the Captain Manicorn show. I'm helping her with that. I can't even function at the end of the night from sucking in fumes all day from welding and grinding. Not like, hey, let's weld once in a while. I don't understand. You don't understand. I welded for
15 hours all
15-hour days,
every day.
8 days a week. Like, my brain was grinding, you know. So people don't know this, but welding's actually really easy.
Didn't you burn your teeth?
I did. I burned holes in my teeth.
The sparks, like literally, like
Well,
you
you know,
burned
you're
his teeth.
just sitting there grinding like this, staring at it, like, oh, and then just sparks hitting you in the face. But people don't know this about building, is that you think it's just a weld. No, anybody can weld. Anybody can cut a piece of wood. It's taking that piece of metal and grinding it clean at the end, so that when you put paint on it, that it looks good. You know, for every 10 minutes of welding, you have an hour of grinding. Especially if you're a shitty welder, you have even longer grinding. And I'm a shitty welder, so I had a lot of work grinding to do. I can tell you that we're not only setting a world record to fly parachutes in every country of the world, but we're also setting a record to break down in every country of the world.
I think we might actually hold the record.
I think we hold the record in the world for broken down in the most cities in different countries. And maybe even we've been towed probably more than anybody else in Turkey.
Hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. We've been towed.
So my experience is that this is a culture enriching experience, because the more you break down, the more people that need to help you, and before you know it, you know, hundreds of. We literally last week broke down because of the coil, and so I was making a left-hand turn in a city not too far from here, and it died. But it was a dead end. It was 2 houses at the end of the street. And I was blocking these guys both their houses, and they were trying to go into their home. So eventually the guy's like, hey man, you can sleep in my yard. And I'm like, I don't have a choice, dude.
We pushed the van.
Yeah, we all pushed we pushed the van in the yard, and we set up shop in this guy's front yard. He brought us out power, and that's the truth. When it's not breaking down, it's the most awesome thing in the world. And I think we've just about fixed all of the mechanical things that could go wrong.
Don't say that. You're gonna jinx it. Knock on wood.
There is none. It's all metal. Oh.
So I guess what Jamie's trying to say is that we finished the van build, and in anyone's mind, you think that you finish a grueling project like this and you're just going to drive into the sunset, and then the world, you're going to see rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, and that's just not how it goes. Because it's such a custom build, we discovered so many problems, and slowly we had to work through them. I mean, the first big
But they're not problems with what I built. They were problems mechanically. So, yeah, leaks here and there, who cares? But like from the pop-outs structural point, bending, things like that, everything did fantastic. It was the things that it's a 91, right? So it had mechanical things, like that's what we're talking about. All of those things started going, and it was like every time I'd fix one thing, it was like a water pipe, right? I'd fix the leak here, another leak happened, and it's been happening for like 4 months straight. This van makes me smile.
Not just you, it makes
Everybody smile. We call it the smile machine. So that's internally what's happening inside. It killed a little bit of my soul, but it's being slowly rebuilt by watching all the children and people that we drive by smile, give us thumbs up. It literally creates smiles. And when I get out of the van and I'm flying by, looking at it or walking up to it, I go, I built that. That's pretty cool. You know, that's pretty cool. So it's a testament to the old theory of overcoming adversity. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to be unhappy. It's okay to be miserable while you're doing something because the reward is worth it. Now that I live in it, I love this van. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I truly believe this will be in a VW museum somewhere. You know what I mean? Because it's the first VW with T4 with sidewall pop-outs in the world. And it's pink and green. So, you know, it's almost like a woman. You can't live with them and you can't live without them. Usually at a service station in any random city.
You can find us there.
You can find us there.
If you don't know where to find us.
If you don't know where to find us, look up the local VW mechanic in any random city in the world and just dial and say, have you seen the Manicorn lately?
So we're sharing our entire journey, the good, the bad, on social networks, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We don't really have a favorite. We just kind of put our stuff out everywhere.
But if we had to pick one, we would like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Manicorn Official on YouTube. If you want to see daily stories of what's happening behind the scenes, if you want to see us fixing all these problems in the service shops, you have to follow us on Instagram because we post live stories every day there. If that was all too much, forget everything I just said, type in captainmanicorn.com, and I think we did a pretty good job and you can figure all this out through our website.
I hope so, otherwise I did a bad job and you're going to yell at me.
You know what? You probably did about as good job building the website as I did building this van.
Is that good or bad?
That's for you guys to decide.